They said Antarctica was discovered in the year 1820. But how did someone draw it perfectly mapped and ice-free? More than 500 years before that. This is the Piri-Reis map, a parchment from 1513 that shouldn't exist. It shows the world as it was before the Ice Age: rivers, mountains, coastlines buried now under miles of frozen silence. Scientists call it impossible. Historians call it mystery. But maybe it's something else entirely, a signal from a civilization that wasn't supposed to exist. In 1929, inside the dusty archives of Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, scholars stumbled upon a faded map drawn on gazelle skin. Its creator, Admiral Piri-Reis, an Ottoman explorer, he claimed he compiled it using older charts, some drawn in the time of Alexander the Great. But here's where it breaks logic. One section of the map showed the coast of Antarctica not covered in ice, but green, detailed, alive, rivers flowing inland, mountain ranges where satellites later confirmed they existed beneath the ice. When modern scientists analyzed it, they were stunned. The map matched subglacial topography that wasn't even discovered until the 20th century. How could a 16th century sailor know the shape of a continent buried for millennia? Mainstream historians called it coincidence, but others whispered that Reis had access to something far older, a lost source map from a vanished civilization. He wrote in his notes that his sources included maps drawn before the flood. Before the flood. That's not poetic language, that's Genesis. That's Atlantis. That's memory dressed as myth. If true, it means someone long before Egypt, long before Sumer mapped the planet with aerial or satellite precision, the kind of accuracy that shouldn't be possible without flight or orbit. Could this be evidence of an ancient global culture, one that understood Earth from above? Or were these the remnants of a forgotten technology buried after a cataclysm? Every myth speaks of it, a golden age before ice and chaos. The Sumerians called them the Anunnaki, the Egyptians, the gods of Zep Tepi, the Mayans, the Sky People. Different names, same memory. When you study ancient maps, you start to see patterns, the same angles, the same astronomical alignments repeated again and again. It's like they were preserving data coordinates, power lines, planetary grids. The Piri-Reis map isn't a mistake. It's an artifact of retained knowledge, a technological echo. It suggests someone once had global reach, not with ships, but with machines. The curvature of the Earth, the polar distances, even the proportion of South America to Africa, all nearly perfect. Not bad for a man with parchment and ink, but impossible. Unless he was copying from something more advanced. What kind of civilization could do that before the Ice Age? Who were the mapmakers before history began writing itself? In 1960, the U.S. Air Force analyzed the map. Their report confirmed the Antarctic coastline shown was accurate, as it would appear without ice. They couldn't explain how. And here's the twist. Antarctica's ice began forming over 6,000 years ago. That means whoever charted it saw the land before it froze. Yet recorded human history only goes back about 5,000 years. So who drew what no human was supposed to see? Maybe the world didn't lose knowledge. Maybe it lost permission to remember. Because buried under miles of ice could be the truth that Earth's last great civilization didn't vanish. It was buried. When ice buries memory, power resets. Civilizations rise, forget, fall, and rebuild, each thinking they're the first. But the maps never lie. Every few millennia, fragments, surface-coded drawings, impossible alignments, sacred geometry echoing in architecture and art. The Piri-Reis map is one of those fragments, a message that slipped through time's fingers. Not to warn us, but to remind us. Because if they could map the world before ice, maybe they also knew what was coming after it. Maybe the ice wasn't nature's punishment. Maybe it was Earth's reboot. And we, the modern world, might just be living in its recovery file. The Piri-Reis map shouldn't exist, but it does. And that means history isn't wrong. It's incomplete. Because where myth speaks of gods and floods, and science speaks of time and erosion, somewhere in between lies the truth, that the machine of history runs on cycles, and we are simply the next turn of its wheel. This is Orbital Dewoks, where myth collides with machine, and forgotten knowledge becomes the blueprint of tomorrow.